That sound is a brand new file failing on mild steel. $11 at the big box store. One pass in the vise, it skidded. So I went out to the barn, to the old toolbox with Paul burned into the lid, and a date, 1947. Same steel, same angle, same job. First pass, it bit. Second, it curled a chip, shiny as a new quarter. Third, the steel peeled away. What are we doing to ourselves? Once you start asking that, you see it everywhere. Things that used to sit on a shelf, plain, honest, made-right things, are gone, or replaced by something cheaper that lasts exactly as long as the warranty, and not one day longer. Here's what matters. I grew up in a holler in Southwest Virginia. Ma ran a kitchen on things the internet calls extinct. Paul owned the hardware store for 51 years, and he taught me about steel, wood, and fire. They're gone. Before they went, they put the knowledge in me, and I'm passing it along one shelf at a time. 3 things before we start. 1. Something got pulled off the shelf because of meth, and the maker wasn't the villain. 2. Something on this list I was wrong about, on camera, and I'm correcting myself right here. 3. The number one thing I miss most can't be bought at any price. Not online, not at auction, not in the back of a dusty antique shop. It's gone, and no amount of money brings it back. That's the one that broke me. Countdown starts now. Number 10. Strike Anywhere matches. Myth-busting time, because the internet loves this one. Strike Anywhere matches were never banned in the United States. Not federally, not in most states. Europe banned them outright. Shipping? A different animal. The post office refuses to carry them. FedEx and UPS treat a box like a bomb, and the UN lists them as dangerous goods. Number 13331. Regulated to death, but banned? No. So what happened? The blue tip itself was discontinued, the old Ohio plant went dark, and the stores dropped the box one by one because the insurance and the hazmat paperwork cost more than the matches ever did. The law didn't kill them. Logistics did. And here's the kicker. The dangerous version died a century ago. The original heads carried white phosphorus, and the kids who worked the match factories breathed that dust until their jawbones rotted. Phossy jaw. Some died. That horror story is why the safe match was built. The chemistry got replaced, and it struck just fine. The match your grandfather remembers, the Ohio blue tip, the one that lights on anything rough, has been safe for 100 years. It's still made. Diamond's green lights are the last Strike Anywhere box on most shelves. But the blue tip he bought for pocket change runs a few times the price now. You can't ship it to your door, and your hardware store won't stock it. Ma kept a box in the kitchen drawer for 40 years. She could light one on the underside of the stove lid, one-handed, in a dark kitchen at 5 in the morning. The trick, nobody teaches it anymore, is press down, drag fast, don't scrape, and the sulfur smell hits you like the day is starting. When the box ran low, she'd ration them like gold. "These'll be gone someday," she'd say, "and you'll be sorry." I thought that was Ma fussing. She was a prophet. That's number 10. Number 9, Real Lye soap. The one the drugs took. If you remember the smell, you're over 40. Straight sodium hydroxide and rendered fat, usually lard, and thyme. That's the whole recipe, and you can't buy the first ingredient in most stores anymore. Pure Lye sits on the short list of what meth cookers want, so the chains that sold it by the box started logging it, then quietly dropped it. Nobody passed a law against lye soap. The shelves just emptied. And the unfair part, the maker wasn't the villain. That company made an honest product for 100 years. Soap, canning lye, drain cleaner. Then meth cookers got hold of it, and an honest product became collateral damage. The stores didn't ban it out of spite. They ran the numbers. One meth lab traced to a receipt, and the risk stops being worth it. So the lye went. Not because it's bad, because it's useful. And usefulness got weaponized. You used to find it in the supermarket aisle, in a plain yellow box next to the borax. Now you hunt for it beside the drain cleaner, or order it online and sign a chemical form. And the shelf that always had it is a rack of lottery tickets. The science. Soap is not detergent. It's a chemical reaction. Fats and lye cooked and cured into a brand new thing. That's not a recipe. That's chemistry done in a kettle. And real soap does something store-bought bars never could. It rinses clean. Detergent bars are surfactants that coat your skin and strip the oils like a machine. Lye soap grabs the dirt, holds it, and lets the water carry both away, leaving a squeak on your arm that means clean, the way clean used to be spelled. Ma made soap every fall in a black kettle over an open fire, wearing her mother's gloves. She poured it into a wooden frame, cut bars with wire, and they cured 6 weeks on the cellar shelf. The first week, it took the hide off you. By Christmas, it was the gentlest thing you ever washed a baby with. The cure is the recipe, the exact step the modern world didn't have time for. Wait 6 weeks, the internet says. I need it now. Yeah, that's the point. The thing that can't be rushed is the one that works. That's number 9. Number 8 is the reason I opened this video holding a brand new file that skids. If you're getting something out of this, if you've ever stood in an aisle and known, in your bones, that the old way was better, hit that like button and subscribe. I'm going to keep making these until the whole shelf is documented. There are grandpas out there right now carrying a lifetime of this knowledge in their heads, and when they go, it's gone. I'm trying to write it down before it's forgotten. Subscribe. It costs you nothing, and it tells the algorithm that old knowledge still matters. And now, number 8, the American file. The file is the clearest story of money-beating quality I know. Nicholson built a machine in 1864 that cut consistent file teeth in Providence, Rhode Island, and for 100 years, the name was a promise. American steel, American heat treat, teeth you could feel with a fingernail. My grandfather's file, the one that bit into the steel in the barn, was probably cut in the 1950s, and it still cuts. It outlived the company that stamped the box, because in 1972, the company got bought. One acquisition, then 50 years of financial logic, consolidation, cost-cutting, and in 2011, the last American plant closed, and the name went to work in Mexico, Brazil, and Colombia. The brand didn't die. The promise did. You can still buy a file stamped Nicholson. I did this week, $11, and it skids. The steel is soft-skinned. The teeth won't bite. Mechanism time. A file is a row of tiny chisels. Each tooth is cut at an angle, like a plow blade, and the steel has to be hard enough to shear metal without rolling over. American files were cut from good stock and heat-treated with care. And here's the terrible part. Nobody sharpens a file. When the teeth dull, it's a doorstop, only as good as the day it was made. So when a company saves 20 cents on steel and 30 on heat treat, they aren't making a cheaper file. They're making a sculpture of a file. It looks right, it costs less, and the first time you use it, you find out. I paid $14 for the new one, the one that works. The 1950s file out of Paul's box cost me $3 at a flea market in Marion, from a man cleaning out his father's shed. $3. The good one was the cheap one. The expensive one was junk. Paul taught me to file when I was 12. He made me chalk the file first, rub chalk into the teeth so they don't clog, and lift on the return stroke, never drag. A file cuts one way, boy, he'd say. So do you. He stood over my shoulder until my arm ached, and when I finally cut a true flat surface, he didn't say good. He nodded. A nod from Paul was a paragraph from anybody else. I keep waiting for files to get good again. I won't live to see it. The machines that made them right are scrap. The men who ran them are gone. A century and a half of American file making, and what's left is a name on a box and a harder story. Quality isn't restored by nostalgia. It's restored by somebody deciding to spend the money, and nobody's decided yet. Number 7. Real turpentine. The true stuff, gum spirits of turpentine, is distilled from the sap of pine trees. A pine tree got wounded to make the can you're holding. The resin runs out, the still cooks it down, and what comes off is a solvent so honest it will dissolve dried oil paint, clean a brush down to the ferrule, thin a varnish, and wake up every molecule of oil in anything it touches. It's a living product. Every gallon came out of a tree, and every gallon smells like the woods after rain. And we replaced it with a byproduct of crude oil, mineral spirits, paint thinner, same shelf, same price, half the truth. Mineral spirits is petroleum refined a little and bottled a lot. It works. On wet paint, it cleans a brush that's still soft. But dried paint, old varnish, glue, real turpentine dissolves them like they never happened. Mineral spirits takes the surface off and leaves the stubborn underneath. The woodworker's literature will tell you the same. They are not the same chemical. They don't act the same. And the honest one was born in a tree. We chose the refinery because the refinery is cheaper by the barrel. And we never looked back. The store shelf you walk past every week is an archive of those choices. And no one wrote an obituary when the real thing left. When did the shelf change? Quietly. Through the 60s and 70s, the paint companies stopped buying gum turpentine in bulk. The naval stores industry shrank. The price climbed, and the store buyer, whose job is price not principle, switched the order. One year the shelf read, turpentine, pure gum spirits. The next, paint thinner. Nobody announced it. The aisle just changed clothes. Grandpa's paint shed smelled like turpentine, linseed oil, and old iron. The smell of a man getting ready to do something right. He kept his turpentine in a glass jar with a cork, poured a little into a coffee can to clean his brushes, and poured the dirty stuff back through a rag. The same batch cleaned his brushes for 20 years. You ever see a man pass his tools down? That jar was in his will. It went to my uncle, who threw it out in 2009 because it smelled too strong for the garage. You can still buy real gum turpentine today, but you buy it at an art supply store, half the size, twice the price, with a French label, because painters still know, and hardware stores don't. The farmer's shelf is empty. That's number 7. Number 6 can burn your whole shop down, and the name on the can is a lie. Number 6, boiled linseed oil. The surprise first, boiled linseed oil is not boiled. The can is a liar. The real stuff was actually boiled flaxseed oil, thickened by hours of work. What sits on the shelf under that name today is raw linseed oil, with metallic dryers dumped in, cobalt and manganese, so it dries fast. Same name, completely different product, and the metallic dryer version brought a new friend, fire. Spontaneous combustion is real, not an old wives' tale. Chemistry doing exactly what chemistry does. Linseed oil dries by drinking oxygen out of the air. The molecules link up and polymerize, and that reaction gives off heat. A thin film sheds the heat, but a pile of oily rags, balled up in a corner, drying all at once, has nowhere for it to go. It builds and builds. Hours later, in the middle of the night, the rags reach ignition temperature and light themselves, alone, in the dark. No spark, no flame, just tired, warm rags in a corner. I have stood in the blackened shell of a workshop where it happened. A cabinet maker I knew, careful with everything except a coffee can of oily rags, lost a 30-year shop to a fire that started at 2 in the morning in the trash can. The fire marshal's report read, spontaneous combustion. The man didn't argue. He'd been told. He just never thought it would be him. So if you take nothing else from this video, lay your rags flat, outside, until they're stiff as cardboard, or soak them in a sealed metal can of water. Flat, always. The rag is the fire. So why did the old-timers accept the risk anyway? Because boiled linseed oil is the best cheap finish a working man ever had. It doesn't sit on the surface like a plastic coat. It soaks into the wood, feeds the fibers, swells the grain, and turns a pale axe handle into honey-dark ironwood. A coat a day for a week, then one a month, and the wood deepens for 50 years. It's on every tool handle that ever outlived its owner, and it's repairable. You never strip it, you just add more oil, and the old finish wakes up like a sleeping dog. It got replaced by polyurethane, plastic, glossy in the store aisle, dry in 4 hours. It sits on the wood like a shell, until it chips, cracks, and peels the first hard winter. And when it fails, you must sand the plastic off before you can start over. The old finish failed by fading quietly. The new one fails by flaking loudly. Paul finished every handle he ever made with 3 coats of boiled linseed oil, rubbed in with his palm. The hand knows when the wood is hungry, he'd say. He'd hang the handles on nails and spread the rags flat, and the shop always smelled like a linseed farm. He died at 82, of old age, not of the rags. He was the one man in 50 who spread his rags flat every time. The discipline isn't the oil, it's the rag. That's number 6. Number 5 is a nail, and it's better than the thing that replaced it. Number 5, cut nails. In the 1800s, every carpenter and farmer built with a nail that was cut out of a sheet of iron like a little wedge with a head, tapered on 2 sides, blunt on the tip. That shape is the whole story. Mechanism. A cut nail is a wedge. Drive it in, and the taper spreads the wood fibers sideways, and thousands of them clamp down on the flat sides like a fist. The more you pull, the more the wedge wants to stay. That's why the floorboards in a 1903 farmhouse don't squeak or move after 120 years. A wire nail, the modern one, stamped out by the mile, is a round pin with a point. It pushes the fibers aside and does not wedge. It just occupies space. It holds well enough for a while, and then the house breathes, the seasons turn, and the pin gets loose in its hole. Wire nails back out. Any porch with a nail walked itself out of the bottom board. That's a wire nail waving at you like it wants to leave, which it does. It's been trying to leave since the day you hammered it, and here's the number that kills the argument. A cut nail holds better than a wire nail of the same size. Not equal, better. The tests I've seen put a cut nail's gripping power at almost 1.5 times a wire nail's in the same wood. And driven true, it splits the board less, and it pulls out cleaner when you have to. but the machine that made them was slower, and each nail cost more. The wire nail machine is fast and cheap and less true, so we standardized on fast and cheap, built 1,000,000 buildings out of it, and now generations think a nail is a pin. Paul and I harvested cut nails one fall, salvaging floorboards from a house scheduled for the dozer. Every board we pulled left cut nails still gripping the joists after a century. Paul worked one out with a pry bar and turned it in his fingers. "See that taper? That's a wedge, not a pin." He handed it to me. Somebody, somewhere, decided pins were cheaper than wedges. They were right, and now everything wobbles. I still have that nail. It sits on my workbench next to a modern nail I pulled out of the same kind of floor. With my fingers, no pry bar needed. I keep them side by side to remind myself, cheap is a choice, and the choice gets built into the walls. That's number 5. Number 4 is a skillet, and the reason eggs don't slide anymore isn't the cook, it's the factory. Number 4, machined cast iron. Every grandmother's skillet, the black one, the heavy one, the glass smooth one that eggs slid across like ice, was machined. After the iron was poured, the cooking surface was ground flat as a mirror on a machine. That's why the old pans are smooth. That's why the food doesn't stick. It was engineered. The new ones, with pre-seasoned printed on the box, are poured, left rough, and sold. The cooking surface looks like a moonscape, and the packaging says the roughness helps hold the seasoning. The packaging is lying. Mechanism. Seasoning is oil heated until the molecules polymerize, linked together into a hard, slick, food-safe coating. That's all it is. Chemistry done with heat and oil, layer after thin layer. A machined surface takes seasoning evenly. A rough one can't. The oil pools in the pits, the high spots stay bare, and the food finds the bare spots. That's why a new pan sticks, and why no amount of cooking fixes it. You aren't the problem. The pan is. The factory sold you a pan that stuck forever and called it heritage. Why did they stop machining? Money. Machining every pan costs an extra machine, an extra man, extra time. Leaving it rough costs nothing. And that pre-seasoned layer? A fast factory-baked coat that browns and flakes. It isn't seasoning. It's a head start on pretending. The old way, the pan came bare, and you built the seasoning yourself with lard and patience and Sunday morning breakfasts until that pan was yours, chemically bonded to your cooking. The new pan arrives with a story pre-written by a machine that never cooked. Ma's number 8 skillet, bought in 1955, has cooked for 3 generations, and eggs still slide on it like glass. She never washed it with soap in her life. Lye soap is fine for cast iron, but she didn't trust it. And you don't argue with a woman who's fed people for 60 years. She wiped it with salt and lard while it was warm, hung it on its nail, and that was the whole ritual. When she died, the skillet went to my aunt, who scrubbed it with steel wool and dishwasher detergent, and wept when the seasoning came off. She thought she'd ruined it. She hadn't. That's the beautiful part. You can't ruin a piece of cast iron. Strip it to bare metal, lye bath, oven cleaner, a self-cleaning oven cycle, and re-season it from scratch, and a month later it's better than whatever the factory shipped. The material is immortal. The seasoning is just a coat of memory. That skillet has a new season now, and it's my aunt's, and someday it'll be her daughter's, and the story is still cooking. So here's a free challenge. Next flea market, find a rough, rusty, unloved skillet for $5. Smooth inside, light for its size, made before 1960. Bring it home, strip it, season it, cook an egg. When it slides, you'll understand something no store can sell you. What makes that pan work is you. That's number 4. Number 3 is where I correct myself, on camera, because I was wrong, and being wrong isn't the same as being dishonest. Number 3, Arkansas wet stones. 2 years ago, I made a video where I said the old Arkansas sharpening stones were done. The quarries played out, the black surgical stones a memory. Anybody sharpening on a wet stone in the 2020s was a ghost. I said it with confidence. I was wrong, and I'm going to tell you exactly how wrong. The stone is still there. The Ouachita Mountains in Arkansas are built of a rock called novaculite. Millions of years of silica laid down so fine and so hard, it's microcrystalline quartz. It's harder than steel. And it's still being quarried today. Companies like Dan's Whetstone, Smith, and Norton St. Gobain still mine it, still cut it, still sell it. The resource is enormous. The Arkansas stones are extinct story I told you? Extinct the way a rumor is extinct. I repeated something I'd heard, and I never checked it, and I was wrong. So why does the wet stone belong on a list of things that are disappearing? Because the stone is still made, but the practice is going. A stone isn't a tool. A stone is a ritual. You have to flatten it. You have to load it with oil or water. You have to work the whole face in figure eights and keep it true. Wear a hollow into the middle and you've ruined it, and the flattening stone that fixes it is itself another ritual. It's the most forgiving, demanding thing in the shop, and the modern world replaced it with diamond plates and ceramic stones. Fast, foolproof, never need flattening. They work. They're just different. A diamond edge is toothy. It bites, but it tears. An Arkansas edge is polished, fine as a whisper. If you've ever shaved with a razor that sang, that's the Novaculite talking. I used to watch Grandpa sharpen his pocket knife every Sunday on the porch rail, the wet stone sitting in a tobacco tin of oil. Half the edge was the stone. The other half was the 15 quiet minutes he gave it, every week, without a clock. You can't buy that. The stone is $10 at an auction. The practice, the flattening, the oil, the figure eights, the patience, that's the part they stopped making. So I correct the record, on camera. The Arkansas stone is not extinct. It's available, affordable, and better than almost anything on the modern shelf. I was wrong, and I'm glad I was wrong, because being wrong about that means the story isn't over yet. Ma always said a man who can't say I was wrong can't learn. Well, I was wrong, and now I get to learn. And so do you. That's number 3. Number 2 is the thing Paul couldn't give me, no matter how many times I asked. Number 2, reading hickory grain. Back when Paul's store had a barrel of hickory handles by the back door, axe, hammer, and maul handles standing in a cut oil drum like young trees. The real skill wasn't picking one, it was reading one. Every handle came from hickory split out of a log along the grain, the way the tree laid it down. The fibers run unbroken from grip to eye. That's the secret. A handle fails when the fibers get cut short, sawed instead of split, grain running off at an angle. Short grain breaks. Every snapped axe handle broke at the neck, where the grain lay down when it should have stood up. Mechanism. A hammer handle transfers shock. Thousands of impacts over years, from head to arm. The fibers carry it like a rope carries weight, so long as they run true. The moment you cut across them, shaping the handle, fitting the eye, you create a weak spot, and that's where it snaps. Guaranteed. Usually above your foot. The old makers never heard the word fatigue. They had the word grain, and it was enough. Paul would let me dig through the barrel and pick. Then he'd take the handle, tap it on the floor like a walking stick, and listen. Sometimes he'd toss it back without a word. What's wrong with it? Wine in it. He could hear the difference between a handle that wanted to live and a handle that was just wood. One winter, I asked him to just pick the best one and be done. He looked at me a long second. Boy, I could hand you the right handle. That'd be doing you a favor. But I can't hand you the 20 years of picking it takes to know it's right. That part, you've got to grow yourself. I didn't understand him then. I do now. The barrel is gone. The store's a vape shop now. And the handles you can buy are sanded smooth, stained, pressed from mystery wood, the truth painted over. But the reading? I've got a little of it now. Every time I tap a handle and listen, I'm 20 again, standing in the sawdust, being taught by a man who thought he was just selling hardware. That's number 2. And now number 1. The thing that can't be bought at any price. The thing that broke me. Number 1. The man behind the counter. I could have listed anything. Blades, barrels, canvas, brass, oilcloth, good screwdrivers, 100 more shelves. But the truth underneath this whole list is not an object. It's a person. The man who stood behind the counter and knew what every single one of those things was for. Paul knew which file for which steel, which nail for which wood, which oil for which finish, because he'd used every one of them. When he didn't know, he said so, then walked to the shelf and figured it out while you waited, because the answer was in the thing itself, if you knew how to look. A hardware store like Paul's was a brain. The aisles were the memory, but the man was the mind. The knowledge wasn't printed on the packaging, it lived behind the counter, in the man. You walked in with a broken hoe and didn't buy a part. You described the break, he'd tilt his head, and the answer came back like it had been waiting for you, because it had. The big box stores didn't kill Paul's store. The math did. 51 years of Saturday mornings, and then one day the numbers said the building was worth more than the business. He sold it, retired. It's a vape shop now, and the aisles where I learned everything are shelves of flavored fog. And that's the whole point of this list, the thing I've been building toward. This was never about the old stuff being better because it was old. Some things were made right, and some things were made cheap, and we chose the cheap, and that was a trade, not progress. But the deepest loss, the one no money can reverse, is the man. The men and women who held the whole catalog in their heads could fix what they sold and let you owe until Saturday. They didn't retire into boats. They retired into a gap that nothing has filled. The counter is gone. The stool is gone. And the knowledge, the 20 years of picking handles, the hand that knows when wood is hungry, the nod that meant good, went into the ground with them. Paul's been gone 6 years. Ma, 8. I think about that stool he kept for 40 years. And all the questions I never asked, because at 18, I knew everything. Here's the one thing I want you to take away. If you still have that person, that grandpa, that neighbor, that old-timer at the feed store, go ask the questions now, this week, today. Don't film it. Don't plan a speech. Just sit with them and say, show me how you do that, because they've been waiting for somebody to ask. He has, she has. And one day, you'll stand where a hardware store used to be and be glad you asked while asking was still possible. So here's your challenge. Pick one thing from this list and do it. Test a file against an old one. Bring a $5 skillet home and season it. Tap a handle on the floor and listen. Sharpen something on a stone until it sings. And hang your oil rags flat. Please, for people like Paul, that's the whole religion, right there. And now, the question I ask at the end of every one of these. Tell me about the thing in your house that came to you from somebody else. What is it? Whose was it? And what county did it come from? I'll read every single one. They knew. Now it's written.